We actually have a terminology for what you might be thinking, reading the title and seeing the thumbnail. In Farsi, the language spoken in Iran, Afghanistan and a few other countries, we call that Guz va shaqiqe, which means fort and temple. Look, I do know that it sounds strange, but let's take a step back and look at Attack on Titan from another perspective. We can pretty much liken the rumbling to a nuclear weapon or to a stockpile of nuclear weapons. What we have in Attack on Titan is something close to a Cold War rhetoric that we have seen years before, and we are seeing now again with the resurgence of the Cold War era again, Cold War V2 as I call it. I have worked about 5 years as a journalist in international media, if you're curious. I do have some interviews on YouTube to look up if you want to know. The main concern with the rumbling is that it goes and destroys everything, it destroys the whole world, and that it shouldn't be possible for a party, for someone, for any kind of person to have access to that power, to such a destructive power that potentially destroys the whole world and doesn't leave any room for improvement upon them after the world has been destroyed. Look, I did talk about that in another video that you must have seen by now. We can't go and ignore the environmental challenges and damages by the rumbling that Eren activated on the whole world. It's pretty much safe to assume that the Wall Titans had to walk the whole way and destroy every single living creature under their feet to be able to kill that much people, to massacre, to commit a massacre of that size. So imagine the level of deforestation that has to happen if you have God knows how much. They count them in the hundreds of thousands of Titans just marching and destroying every single thing they step on. You imagine that happening. Imagine how much of the world's vegetation has to disappear for that to happen. And when that actually happens, do you think it's reversible? No. Doesn't it seem kind of similar to what would a nuclear weapon do? It kind of does. Doesn't it make whole areas uninhabitable? It probably does. I did talk about that. I'm not gonna go deeper into that here, but this is one aspect of the rumbling. The other aspect is that it's a powerful weapon that when you, let's say, fire it, activate it, it does bring consequences that you cannot undo. And the main aspect of the rumbling is that it serves as a deterrent, exactly as nuclear weapons, and permits the party in possession to be able to keep their grip on whatever area, country or anything or people they have. And what would that be the reason? Exactly the fear of that weapon, the rumbling in this case. When you look at concepts such as the mutual destruction, you do notice that the whole thing is based on a mutual fear of mutual destruction if any of the parties resorts to use the nuclear weapon. In this case, Paradise has that weapon and it doesn't choose to use it. It was never supposed to be used, just as nuclear weapons. Do know that even though we have a shitload of nuclear weapons in the world, none of the parties involved does want to use them. You use one of them in one area of the world and it does contaminate the whole world. Just look up what Fukushima did, even that's just a leakage from a tsunami if I'm not wrong. So you do have this powerful nuclear weapon, let's say, the rumbling. It does have a few differences when you compare them with a nuclear weapon, conventional nuclear weapon. Nuclear weapons play their role and do still play a role in conflicts in which ideological differences are the main theme, are the main issue there. Communism, capitalism, liberals, whatever you name them. But it's not a physiological and biological difference. Let's take that into Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan, you have the Eldians that are descendants of Ymir, the founder, and then you have the other people, the normal people, let's call them. That's not a very good terminology to use, and I'm sorry, but I don't have any other word for that at the moment. You do have a bunch of people that they can't change the fact that they are Eldians, and that they can't change the fact that they can become Titans. And do know that they can become Titans even if they don't want to become Titans. You do have a semi-human, semi-monster population. That is the Eldians and the Paradisian. The same population is persecuted by the world and it could be destroyed. They are not shy of their attempts to destroy Paradise and the Eldians. Do remember they are in concentration camps basically, or in camps, let's call them, outside Paradise. The main difference here is that there is no way to overcome that difference that the parties have. There is no way to overcome the fact that these people can change into Titans. There is no way to overcome the fact that any of these people that is of the royal blood or has access to royal blood or anything and has access to the founding Titan can activate the rumbling and potentially destroy the world. It's not something you can fix with dialogue. It's not something you can overcome. It's not something you can come to terms with, because imagine you have a neighbor. This said neighbor of yours could become a titan at any moment, not at their own behest. Imagine someone just uses gas like they used on Coney's village. Imagine that they become titans and they start eating you, and killing all your family. And you have no way of knowing when that's gonna happen. This is not a case of ideological disagreement. This is pretty much a case of, obviously, biological difference. Biological difference that you can't possibly fix. What's the solution to some person that can become a titan at any moment? What's the solution to someone that can inherit some titan power at any moment? There is no solution. You can't fix that. Any number of talking you do with anyone does not fix that. And these people have a nuclear weapon at their disposal. What are you going to do? Are you gonna go with Armin's suggestion that we should try to talk to other countries? That's a novel idea, but that wouldn't probably work for any number of reasons, one of the main ones being the main topic of this video. Yes, people can forgive and forget what the Eldians of the past did. Yes, they can do that. Yes, they might do that. I do believe they would end up doing that, but you still have a population of people that you can't call people. Do remember that the Eldians do have a shitload of differences with normal people. Being connected to the so-called tree that at the coordinate, the path that connects them all, that's nothing that the normal people have. Do they? Being able to turn into titans, no, that they don't have that. Being able to become a titan shifter, no, none of them. None of the normal people, that so-called normal people, are able to do that. And as much they would want to make peace with the world, which would be possible, probably, maybe, if Marley wasn't hell-bent on destroying them, Marley and the other population of the world, basically because of the single big fact of the Eldians having access to the rumbling as a part of a deterrent to this nuclear weapon. They can't fix that. Ideological differences, they can be fixed potentially, but biological differences, no, they can't be fixed. The only possible way would be to undo the, I don't know, what do you have to undo? And this fact is forgotten by the Marley apologists every single time. Every single time you have a discussion with the Marley apologists or with some of the haters of Eldia, let's say, not that there are any defenses in what Eren did, I repeat, they tend to forget that the population you are talking about was persecuted for a long time. I'm gonna leave aside the thing about the sins of the past, sins of the people that came before the current generation of Eldians, the things they did, the wars they waged, the invasions they did. I'm not gonna talk about that, and let's be honest, it's not the responsibility of a future generation to take the burden of what the past generations did in these kinds of situations. But at the moment when you look at Eldia and Marley and Eldia and the whole world, they had no other option, no other viable option. Maybe they could have gone the Armin way, they could have tried to talk, but I repeat, you can't fix physiological differences when you are half monster, half human. It's not about, let's say, communism and capitalism fans talking to each other, trying to get to an agreement that they can never get to an agreement anyway. But it's not about that. That's theoretically possible. When you are a person that is semi-human, semi-beast, semi-monster, let's say, and you can become a titan at any moment, and you have the power to become a titan, you do have that. You can't expect your neighbor to make peace with you and be at peace with you, let's say, if you had problems before. And that's pretty logical, and I don't see any reason and any problem with that reasoning, let's say. I have to correct myself, because the world doesn't work that way. It's not Naruto. You don't go Dattebayo everything, you don't go get power of friendship on everything and fix even ideological differences that are very profound with talking, with some random flashbacks of Jiraiya and some other people. It's not about that. I don't think that Isayama ever tried to feed us this image that you have to have dialogue in any case. You do have to have that, but let me correct that again. You can't expect every single dialogue to work. It's not about just talking. You have to be realistic. In these kind of issues that actually is something physical, that is something that is in your DNA, let's say, that you are not a complete human, you are semi-human, semi-demon, let's say, a monster, let's say, whatever. It's pretty much difficult to make peace. And I do agree that Isayama could have done a much better job at that and explored that a bit more. But what Isayama did center around the last parts of the manga of Attack on Titan, in this case, in this respect, was mostly about revenge, was mostly about nationalism and about survival. There wasn't much about the, let's say, physiological aspect of that. Because, for example, if Eren could erase the Titan power from the Eldian population, that might have been a good solution before any kind of rumbling. Let's say a limited rumbling on the military installations that Gabi talked about that. They could have done that, and then he could have erased the Titan power if it was possible. I'm not gonna jump into spoilers here. If he could erase them himself, he might have done that, saved the Eldians, and after the war's military had been decimated, they could have reached a long-lasting peace and at least have normal wars because of, I don't know, national interest, because of greed, because of ideological differences, not a war for survival, because these are different kinds of wars. Look, I know, Eldians were bad. Eren didn't do exactly the best thing in the world. He's not a saint. He's a mass killer and mass murderer. There is no doubt on that. But do remember that there was no fucking way that they could come to a truce or to an agreement. Because of the fact that this population of semi-human, semi-monsters weren't slaughtered because of the single reason that they had a nuclear deterrent. And this nuclear deterrent was something that was protecting them the whole time. Do remember that. Do remember, and do write in the comments below if you believe that it was possible for the parties involved to come to an agreement, and let me know generally what you think about this discussion here. I do firmly believe that it was impossible for them to come to an agreement. It would just delay the inevitable. You can't have truce and peace with strange creatures that can turn into titans at any time. I do plan to have a more in-depth discussion about this issue later on. You will see that. Thank you for your attention and do have a nice day. And if you like the video, I don't care about sharing and subscribing. Do leave me a comment. I do love comments. Shab bekhair, as they say in Farsi. Good night.